Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Now with me, Mr. Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, national development advocate, and fellow Institute of Leadership Coaching and Strategy. Well, Mr. Ologun, it's been quite a busy day, a pot full of subjects.
Absolutely.
I don't know where you want to start from. I don't need to offer you any summary.
Thank you very much. Let's start from the last one, the case of the court throwing out the fundamental human rights issues. I think I'm embarrassed, and we need to wake up as a nation and establish a system that is serious-minded. You see, when courts make pronouncements, the court should be able to follow up, or the stakeholders managing the case, to prevent embarrassments like this. I know clearly that even though we have Section 36, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that talks about presumption of innocence in the case where anybody, flagged with criminal allegations, that the prosecution must prove the case beyond all reasonable doubts. Why do we have all these delays? I like to make reference to the UK. You saw the case of the former governor of Delta State, Ibori. The same media attention and everything, and he kept on escaping the long and short arms of the law in Nigeria. But the moment he landed in the UK, he was jailed 13 years. The recent case of the Ekweremadus, highly sensational and sentimental, to the point that the former president in Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, wrote a letter to the UK requesting for leniency. Even ECOWAS tried to intervene, but UK said no. We must implement our laws because we want to sanitize our environment and allow the rule of law. And I think we need to come to that point. I read about all these issues from what the senior Silk said, that other criminal allegations were prompted. But has this man been convicted of anyone? So what are we talking about? Recently, I read about the case of a former governor who drove himself to EFCC. And after many years of prosecution, the court had to release the man to go for lack of diligent prosecution. And I have said it, in the criminal justice ecosystem, you have three strong pillars. You have thorough investigation, you have diligent prosecution before a committed judiciary. Because it's so funny. And let's link it with what happened in Canada. So when we present our nation as a nation that may appear not serious to fight crime and corruption, why won't a court far away in Canada begin to brand parties as being terroristic in nature? Though is their claim, a decision was taken on a matter before then. So I don't see how that affects the image of Nigeria, except that in public relations, there's a demarcation between image and reputation. The image is the picture you want to paint in the minds of your publics. The reputation is who you are. You see, so, and if you look at terrorism as a definition, it is the use of intimidation and violence to achieve some goals, including political goals. So can we not say that some political parties are violent in nature? And when we discuss the by-elections that took place during the weekend, we make reference to some of the findings. So we need to wake up as a people. And if Canada is saying no, we must dig deep into what is presented to us and take our decision. It's an independent, sovereign nation. They can so decide. So it's now for us to prove, and that is if it's necessary to even prove to them, that we don't have political parties that are terroristic, and we also clean up our political and electoral processes. The former prime minister in Canada stepped out, Trudeau left office. There wasn't any rancor. He didn't insist I must remain in power. In the UK, you saw how Boris Johnson was handled by his colleagues, and he had to step aside. In fact, Liz Truss, when she got to office, she realized she couldn't cope with the assignment, and on her own, she stepped aside, and that is what we are talking about. So when you begin to talk about image and reputation, there's a Chinese maxim that says you cannot carve a rotten wood. And I think we need to wake up as a nation and improve on what we have to present to the world. Because like the Prof rightly mentioned, the ambassador, you see, they also look at your headlines. They dig deep into things happening within your environment to come to their conclusions. I mean, many Nigerians have not forgotten the Lekki massacre in quotes. So those are issues that will inform their perception. And about Donald Trump and Putin, you know, Putin has shown class again, and he's a leader that remains mysterious. And I quite agree that Russia is resolute on what is expected from that battle going on between Russia and Ukraine. And I must also say that these leaders, they operate as if governance is their personal whatever, because some citizens of Russia are tired of what is going on. But I really don't know what the interest of Putin is. But for now, I think let's wait and see the outcome of the meeting between Zelensky and some European unions and Donald Trump. And let's give it to Trump for bringing this platform together, even though, as a politician, he promised earlier to terminate that war within a few days. But he has realized now that it's a tough diplomacy. And Putin, even Zelensky is stating it clearly that by constitutional consideration, Ukraine is not willing to cede territories to Russia. And Russia appears to be insisting that this is our goal and we must hit that goal. And that brings us to the issue of Quam 1 and Quam 2. And I must commend my great friend, Jide, for focusing on what we were taught in the law school, that you focus on issues. You know, there may be dramas around these issues. And whether we believe it or not, or like it or not, aviation safety is crucial. In fact, globally, traveling by air is considered the safest. And we must all be on board when it comes to this. And there are protocols that must be respected. You see, and if you go back in history, it was as far back as 1944 that the Convention on Civil Aviation came up with some, moves towards safety aviation. And the safety protocols, they are not just for the crew alone, for the passengers, for the cargo, for everyone. And in the aviation ecosystem, you have the pre-flight protocols where you ensure that everything is intact for a safe and pleasurable flight. You have the in-flight protocols when you are flying in the air, what you must ensure towards safe landing and that the passengers enjoy their trip. And you have the post-flight protocols where you debrief, which means the crew will come together, analyze the flight, what should we improve on, and prepare the aircraft for the next flight. So these are issues. So we should not allow our system of maybe mightier than the law. And again, something I respectfully call ridiculous. Issues that should be prosecuted, that should be followed up. We just sensationalize it, naming people ambassadors. You see, but I'm not surprised if I ask us now who manages our oil facilities. You go back and find out the people behind it. So these are, we should not permit this issue of sensationalism, internet frenzy, when serious issues are on board. We thank God that the aircraft did not crash. We will be talking about, so those are the issues. Let's set our rules and position them effectively. And then about the bus stations. Yeah, laudable projects. But I want to challenge, let me start from Lagos State where I operate. The governor of Lagos State, whom I respect so much, may visit the interchange or the bus terminal in Oshodi and look at what it has become. And one of the reasons for these bus terminals, we want to spend billions of naira to build across the 6 zones in the country, is safety. I challenge the commissioners in Lagos State to disguise, drive an ordinary car, and get to Oshodi and pretend that fuel has finished in that car and come out and test the safety in that location. You see, I challenge those who care for the majority of citizens to drive on this Lekki Expressway from the Badore Junction all the way to Chevron and see some terrible potholes that are on that road. I challenge those who are on the mainland to drive off Oba Akran Avenue. I mean, we should talk about prioritization. It's very important. You know, many of these facilities are, right now, go to Latif Jakonde, Agidingbi Road, that some know it, and see the bus parks that are, the bus stops that are there. Some people have taken it over, that normal human beings, even when they come for shelter, they must be checking to be sure they are not being attacked. So there are better issues to attend to. Power supply, energy, investment in health, investment in education. Then when those things are done, you can begin to talk about these other facilities. And let me say this. There's a difference between infrastructure and superstructures. The infrastructures are these things we build. The superstructure is the human element. You know, I was discussing somewhere, they talk about making ease of doing business. Go to Corporate Affairs Commission now. Ask them how long it takes to activate a company after you've paid the annual returns, despite all they have installed. Go to the airport. Don't we have facilities installed at the airport? In our port, seaports, to fast track all those checks. Do those things work? You know, what about getting your NIN? I mean, these are issues that should bother us. You build, like he brilliantly mentioned, there are several terminals we have built. How many buses, talking about this, commercial buses, respect, you know, parking at the bus stops to pick passengers in Lagos? How many of them stop for traffic lights? So please, let's look at all this. And Doctor, I've taught some of the issues.
No. How about the 7-year ban on the creation of federal universities, polytechnics, and
good
monotechnics?
One, but like it was expressed, my president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces has 2 more years for the first time, and God willing, if he gets the second time, what happens to the 7 years project? And let me say this, we also need a systemic sanity in Nigeria, where you say this is what we want as a government. And it's not that a leader comes in and dismantles that structure. I just told us about Lagos. I'm sure when former Governor Ambode was building all those bus stops and everything, he had good intentions. But on leaving office, do we continue with those intentions? There was a time the senior silk, Fashola, cleaned up Oshodi. Sanity was restored to Oshodi. Go back there now and see. And I'm not castigating anybody. I'm just saying that we need a system that gives us a national vision. That this is where we are going. Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of the modern Singapore, has translated to glory. But the foundations he has laid, they are still building on it in Singapore. And that's what we are talking about. So we must be ready. Whether it's the tertiary, and in the area of tertiary institutions, let the country sit down, look at the quality of education. In human resource management, we talk about the gown and the town. How do you link the gown with the town? And if you want to learn more, go and study countries like Iceland, like Netherlands, like Norway, like Germany, like Denmark, what they have invested into education to make it productive. Like China, productive education. You see? And and when we have the competition, sir, you may not even need to ban tertiary institutions being floated when they know they cannot cope with the quality. Look at the recent glitch with JAMB, the recent one also with WAEC and things like that. So we just need to, wake up and re-engineer
Mr.
our structures.
Ologun, I think you more or less covered the grounds, but you still left out one topic. about state governors giving vehicles and accommodation houses to judges and behaving as if they are doing those judges a favor, which was where GT Ogunye started from.
I think that is where we are now as a people, that entitlements are presented by government in court and we celebrate. And that is why maybe somebody as a leader may tar 6 kilometers of road and call the media, bombard the space, and launch it with fanfare, with people playing music and everything, you know. So that's where we are. It's not just about the judiciary rolling out things. What about the traditional leaders in town? When is the governor that will have to hand over the staff of office to the king, reversing the old order where kings could call political leaders to check. But now the political class are calling the shots. So if they are the entitlements of the judicial officers, why not? But some will argue that it is likely to affect the quality of justice that comes from that region. And that brings us to one point. We must develop our HR deliverables. You know, in Singapore, those who serve are well cared for, that they don't even have any part of their heart leaning towards corruption, apart from the fact that the nation has zero tolerance for corruption. But when you claim you don't want corruption in your community, you must ensure also that the temptations for corruption, that you deal with them. I mean, go to any government office now, and I stand to be corrected, and try to process anything. Is it that you want to get a certified true copy? Even in courts, to get certified true copy of a court decision, you know what people we have to go through. So we need to revive righteousness in this land and let things be done the appropriate way.
Okay, let's just take a final topic. You already referred to it. Nigeria's election management body, INEC, held by-elections across 16 constituencies on Saturday to fill vacant seats in the National and State Assemblies. The polls covered 2 senatorial districts in Anambra and Edo, 5 federal constituencies in states, including Jigawa, Kaduna, and Ologun, as well as 9 state constituencies nationwide. The elections followed resignations, deaths of lawmakers, and court-ordered reruns. In some areas, turnout was strong, with heavy security presence reported in states like Ogun, Taraba, and Zamfara. But there were also delays linked to malfunctioning beavers, accreditation machines. Violence and disruptions were recorded in Zamfara, where suspected thugs halted voting in some polling units, and in Kano, where police arrested nearly 300 suspected thugs. The APC has demanded the cancellation of the Kano polls, citing widespread violence. Vote buying also marred the process. Well, Mr. Ologun, what has changed?
Okay, let's start with what has not changed. What has not changed are the rules that you must follow. Names on voters' register for you to vote. You must have your PVC. You must be registered at the polling unit. And you must be accredited through the beavers. And no PVC, no voting. But there were complaints in some areas that the beavers were not as effective as they should be. There were complaints also of intended vote buying. Imagine, about 25 million naira in Kaduna, and I think in Kano also, about 288 thugs were arrested. And we are waiting to see how many of them will be diligently prosecuted with all these electoral offenses. So, and in some locations, for instance, in Anambra State, Soludo claimed it went well, but you will also hear from the opposition saying there was intimidation. In Ogun State, large turnout. But in Oyo State, I was disturbed. The turnout in the particular polling unit was so poor that we still need to do a lot. And it's a matter of all the stakeholders coming together. It's what I mentioned earlier, like you referred to, Doctor. we need to fine-tune our electoral processes and ask deep questions. Why is the desperation that we experience when elections come up? You know, and the world, I mean, there was election in some other countries that you won't even know there were elections. I mean, if you ask some people now who the Chancellor of Germany is, they may mention Merkel, not knowing that another one has come in, because over there they have synchronized their system to focus on service. So you don't have all this stampeding. But by and large, the elections have held, and we are waiting to see, for those who are calling for cancellation in some areas, whether there will be cancellation. And then finally, on this, I want to appeal to those who are elected to realize that one day they will leave office. When do we begin to serve the people? Because it's only God that won't leave office.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ologun. Well, I'm hoping that next week I'll have a much fuller house, but thank you very much for keeping faith.
And congratulations to Professor Kila.
Yes, Professor Kila. I was reserving it for when he's around,
yes.
So that we will not congratulate him in absentia.
Because of the
implications.
Because,
Anyway, congratulations to him, Chancellor, Chairman of Council of the Michael and Cecilia Ibru University in Delta State. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.